All right, everybody, welcome to Chin Music, a new baseball podcast featuring myself, Andrew Menson, as well as my partner in crime, Andrew Lukuski. Not much to say about us besides the fact that we're Mets and Phillies fans, and they just played today. So, if you don't mind, we're going to talk some about that, and then go over some MLB in general, and then our personal favorite segment, Studs and Scrubs, where each of us pick a stud and a scrub of the week, and talk about them. So, yeah. So, anything to add?
No. I do want to say for people who might be wondering how we make the relationship work being Phillies and Mets fans, the answer is we don't. Um, as evidenced by some of the group chats and stuff that we've had, I think, going at each other pretty hard. Um, but yeah, no, both lifelong baseball fans. This is our second time trying to do this, actually. Little fun facts, background about us. But no, I think you covered all your I think you covered all our bases here.
Sweet. So without a doubt, or without further ado, let's get back into it. Me personally, I was looking forward to talking about the Mets game today as they defeat the Phillies 5-4. But after that ninth inning, I was a little bit less happy. It's one of those games where for about 8 innings, I was pretty thrilled with how it was going, and then in the ninth, things kind of slip away. But overall, win's a win, right? So can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, I guess so. I think you and I look at it from a different perspective because I watched the Phillies almost blow a game to the Marlins on Saturday, and I walked away feeling like it was a loss. But I'm honestly equally as angry about the performance today too. It was just a subpar offensive performance combined with a mediocre pitching performance, I guess, at best from
Yeah.
from the Phillies. It could have been a lot worse with had it not been for replay review. The game would have been blown open quite a bit earlier. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Tyler McGill just has something about being able to make himself look like Cy Young when he's pitching against the Phillies. Um, hey, what do you have? Did he have 11 strikeouts today or was it 10? I forget what he
I
finished with.
I
It was at
feel
least
like
10.
yeah, at least 10. I know he cracked I think it was end of the fifth he had his 10th strikeout. But yeah, he looked great. He's been great all season, really. He's kind of
Most of the Mets
so
staff has,
that's true.
with the
Yeah, yeah.
exception of a certain Edwin Diaz, I think.
We'll get to him later, but yeah, going back to McGill, I feel like he always has those hot starts. Like I remember when he first came on the scene was really the that stretch he had in April. And he pitched great. He actually was the one that threw the first five no-hit innings in that fateful day at Citi Field. But he typically has those great starts, and then he just kind of falters. And you kind of saw it late in the fifth, where he starts slipping up, getting into those 3-0 counts, kind of losing the batters there. But luckily, he was able to bend, not break, and kind of finish off strong and really keep the shutout going, which was nice. It was just.
Nice while it lasted. Yeah, and who came in after him? Was it Minter and then Reed, or was it the other way around? I turned off
So
the game honestly after the seventh inning for an hour because
So what
I
happened
couldn't pay
was
attention anymore.
McGill got into trouble in the sixth. He started giving up some walks and soft contact, and they threw in Reed Garrett, who was able to get JT to strike out on that sinker to get out of the
Okay.
jam, and then Kranick pitched seventh, eighth, and then started them
Yeah, I
off.
know. Okay, I did watch the Reed Garrett inning. Then yeah, that's after I turned it off because I watched JT swing at a pitch 7.5 inches off the plate.
Yeah, I mean I feel like whenever I watch the Phillies, it's like it's so strange how even though their team is largely the same as last year. I feel like their identity is so much different, right? Because last year was like the rotation was good, but I feel like this year it's unquestionably like the strength of this team, and the bats are even though it's mostly the same guys. You swap out, like Austin Hayes for Max Kepler, but for Harper's still there,
That's an
Castellanos is
eye
still
for an eye.
there. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
Hayes for Kepler is an eye for an eye. At least Hayes on the Phillies last year. I know he's an all-star at the moment for was he? He's on the Reds now, I think.
Cincinnati, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would agree. But the biggest thing is besides the rotation, everybody got a year older, and when you have a team already for the most part over the age of 30, that year makes a big difference. That's not, you don't have a young team jumping from 27 to 28. You have an older team jumping from like an average age of 33 to an average age of 34.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. I was hoping that a couple of the guys who are supposed to be, coming up on contracts, JT specifically, because Schwarber has a pretty good year. He's fallen off just a little bit. But JT's playing for his next contract in baseball right now, and he is not showing out for it. Really at all. And Castellanos still has another year, and he's playing fine. But these guys, the next contract that most of these guys sign is probably going to be their last,
Yeah.
unless they're lucky enough to maybe get a couple 1 year veteran deals. Um, but it's probably going to be their last, and they're not. They don't seem to. Not seem to care is not the right word. Um, but
I
they're
think
not showing it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I feel like when you've had the last couple of years that the Phillies have had, right? You get to the World Series in 2022, and then after that, it's kind of been like obviously I believe it was the Diamond that next year was Diamondbacks, right, in the NLCS, and then now the Mets in 2024. I feel like when you've had the same core largely, it's not that guys don't care, but it's just sort of a like I feel like these games in April, it's not as much of a like pressing need like every game. Like I feel like at least for me, and I would hope the guys in that dugout feel the same. Like this is a playoff game. Like it's not, and people are oh it's the Mets World Series. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like this game tonight against the Phillies. First, they've played the Marlins a bunch of times. They beat up on the Marlins, beat up on the Cardinals. Like this is a true playoff team. These teams are both going to be in the playoffs, or they should be by October, and to be able to play this game tonight, like I think is I think a lot of guys in the dugout were looking forward to it. To after the crowds have been piling in this season, obviously you sign a big guy like
well,
Juan Soto, like
I think the team that was treating it like a playoff game is the one that won
yeah,
because you watched the guys, Lindor specifically, you know, because he had a good game too, but the other guys too. Like, and again, I struggle to say that the game was not taken seriously, but that's the phrase I'm going to use. And I guess going back to what I was saying before, not that they don't care, but they're getting complacent because they're like, oh, we got the guys, we'll get it done at the end of the year. But that doesn't work when every other team around you has vastly improved. Not every other team, but Dodgers got better, Mets got better, Braves were getting guys back. That remains to be seen whether that'll actually be good or not. But other teams got better, and the Phillies stayed the same. I'm not going to argue that they got better. The decisions that they made, with the exception of Luzardo, have worked out terribly. So it's on the guys who are on the team to get better, and they don't seem to want to do that. And so what you see is the team that got better and wants it more ends up winning out. Um, as much as Edwin Diaz tried to prevent that,
yeah,
um, it's it the team that wanted it more won. That's how I looked at it, and I think that's how most Phillies fans would objectively tell you how tonight went.
for sure. I was curious what you made of Nola's outing. So obviously it got off to a pretty rough start with the first pitch of the not first pitch, but the first at bat of the game getting sent in the right field bleachers, and then Winkers not too long after that. But after he did give up a lot of hard contact, but for the most part, like pretty much there was a period of time in the middle innings where he really settled in and he started racking up strikeouts. So I was curious from your perspective, kind of now that the line is complete, what you thought about it.
So I have struggled to find this stat. I was looking at it before we started. Uh, um, I'm confident enough to say it on the record that I think 90% of the runs that Nola has led up this year, and it might be 100, have come from the home run ball.
He has been very homer
And
prone. Yeah.
I mean, he's always been homer prone, but it's just progressively gotten worse to the point now where, like, seriously, the fact that I'm not 100% sure what his, like, I think he's probably let up what 17 or 18 runs by now, I guess. 15 of them are a result of the home run. Um, so I don't necessarily know what to think yet. He's getting old too. He's racked up an absurd amount of mileage on his arm. Um, I think it was bound to happen at some point. I think he's better than he's been. I don't think he's He's never going to be the Aaron Nola of 2017 to 19 anymore. He's just not that. He's not that guy. Um, I think if obviously if he had not gone back out for the seventh, his line would have been a quality start, 6 innings, 2 runs. I think he had like 8 strikeouts, I guess. Solid start. Um, but I also agree with sending him back out because I have watched the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen, and I think Aaron Nola tired at what was he? He was 85 or 90, I think, is better than Jose Ruiz coming in after. And I think the 3 run home run that was let up right after Nola was taken out of the game is a testament to that. Um, it was, but that's a long answer to say it was promising. Um, Not anywhere where I want him to be, but promising is a good answer because his last outing against the Giants was not good. It was much worse. He let up a lot more hits, a lot more hard contact. Um, he had a period of a couple innings today, at least, where he looked like a shell of the guy that signed a 9-figure contract 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, I definitely it's just goes to show that I like final stat line isn't always everything, right? Because if Topper just takes him out and to start the seventh, then he's looking at a QS and obviously a better line than what he ended up with. But that's just tough because I feel like I would agree with you. He's not his ERA is now at 6.43, and I would agree with the sentiment that I don't think he's going to be challenging for a Cy Young anytime soon. But I think he's still probably a upper echelon, middle to like number three to number two kind of guy. Like so I
If he finishes the year with above like a 4.15, I will be surprised. I don't think he's not gonna throw 200 innings and finish with a below like 3.5. Like I'm confidently saying that he's a 200 inning guy with like a 3.75 to 4 ERA. You know,
Yeah, and that's valuable in today's game. Like you went and saw it. Like for he obviously got taken out midway through the seventh, but for him to go out there even in the first place, when I think 99% of today's pitchers, you see 90 pitches, you see 6 innings, and you said, "All right, thank you, good job." Even with
six
the
innings might be pushing it, but yeah,
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 but yeah, I
yeah.
rough outing, but definitely a little bit undeserved. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
and I agree with you in looking at the final line. I have a hard time, and I know, this is my hot this is sort of my hot baseball take. I pay no attention to the runners that are let in as a result of like I know Nola let the guys on. I almost put that stuff in a separate category. Um, because for all I know, Nola makes a different pitch than Ruiz and rolls a double play. Um, so I don't say that like, I wouldn't say that Nola in that situation is exempt from any blame because yeah, he did let 2 guys on, and I think there were two base hits, or was a base hit and a walk maybe. So he bears the responsibility for that. But something like that, especially later in the game, I sort of put in a separate category. So I'll look at the 6 full innings first, and then I'm like, okay, you know, next time we look at the 6 innings and say, all right, you're done. We figure out something else. And that's where the front office has got to step in because the manager should not feel a need to put a starter back in a situation like that. Because with the hard contact, like you said, it was a ticking time bomb before the Mets figured it out again, I think at least.
yeah, I mean, you saw from the obviously the one that stands out is the Soto foul home run, but even the line drive by Winker that seemed to have gotten spanked and it just hit Harper's glove for the double play when first and third happened. So it could have been worse, but I think at the end of the day, you just got to chalk that up to sometimes that's baseball, right? But going back to the that seventh inning, obviously Lindor hits a huge home run there off of Jose Ruiz. I want to take a second to give a shout out to Tyrone Taylor who, as the 9 hole hitter right before him, hits a chopper to the left side of the infield and should be a routine double play, but Taylor really busted his ass and he managed to kind of make that into a fielder's choice. So Lindor wouldn't have even came up if Taylor hadn't hustled down the line. So that's something that
The
I feel
dream.
like is for sure. And listen, it's like he obviously Tyrone Taylor's no Lindor, but everyone's got to do their part, right? So down to the little things, right? Like obviously there's a big thing about certain guys hustling, and it's just good to see somebody who knows to play his role and play it well, right? I mean, he's going to be bearing the brunt of a lot of center field as Jose Siri makes his way back in the next couple of months. But really nice to see somebody, really putting effort in to kind of, um, pass the baton and keep it rolling for Lindor to be able to do his thing. So
Yeah, I agree. The hustle is a lost art, so to speak. And yeah, I'll yell at anybody anytime for not running out the ball. Um, the guys on the Phillies included. Yeah, that could be a separate topic for another podcast, I think, because I could
yeah,
go on for 40 minutes
go
about
into
that.
the Ronald Acuna tweet. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was interesting. He's not yeah, he's one to walk to first base if he hits into a routine double play though.
Yeah, but I think it was more so him calling out Brian Snicker, the manager, for not yelling at Kelenic, who basically does the same thing there. And I think
Yeah, and I agree.
Snicker's quote was the reporter asked him, like, "Hey, did you say something to Kelenic? Are you going to?" And Snicker's response was, uh, "Am I supposed to say something?" Basically being like, "What did he do wrong?" So I thought that was, I think that's like, don't get me wrong. I think Acuna is definitely, he's not Charlie Hustle. He's not gonna like dive into first base unless it's October. But at the same time, I mean, when you see your own manager, uh dog on you for not for trying to pimp a home run, and then he goes to the guy that's objectively way worse than you, right? Like Jared Kelenick's not the face of the franchise, does the same
Hmm.
thing, and I feel like Jared Kelenic would have, if Snickers said something to him, he definitely wouldn't have like protested it. I think he knows deep down, like as soon as it hits the top of the wall, like, hey, I probably should have been running out of the box, but I
Hmm.
don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah, I got my share of problems with Brian Snicker too. For making up fake stories about Philadelphia fans throwing rocks at his wife or something like that. I forget exactly what he said. Um, but yeah, I know I agree though. Yeah. And I Kelnick seems like the kind of guy that would, he'd be pissed off in the moment, but he would understand the bigger picture. Um, and Snicker's response to that begs the questions of what he expects out of his guys, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Before we move on from this game, I obviously have to talk about that ninth inning. So Max Kranick pitches the seventh, pitches great, pitches the eighth, pitches great, pitches the ninth. You could start to see the cracks. And to be fair, I think I heard on the broadcast that Kranick's the most pitches he had thrown in a game was around 30, and I think he had started to he started the inning around there. So obviously, Mendy just trying to milk the last thing out of him because he's obviously going to not pitch tomorrow, and I believe he would have been in line for his first major league save. So I think there's a little bit of that on the side as well. But um, there's a lot of blame to be shared, and Diaz is obviously a culprit for letting up that nuke to Bryson Stott. But I also think um, Kranick and Mendy are pretty culpable as well, especially Mendy, because I think Kranick, he's shown you over the course of the season. They pointed out before he started that inning that his whip for the year was 0.04, which is ridiculous. Like he is, as of right now, one of the better pitchers, if not one of the best pitchers in the National League. So for him to, I understand him starting the inning, but I feel like once you start giving up those singles, like Mendy needs to step in and say, listen, it's 5-0, it's not 15-0. And the fact that I don't blame him going to Diaz. Diaz is the closer. He until tonight, he's been relatively good. Like the last outing was 1-2-3. He's, obviously had some infamous meltdowns to put it lightly, but I think this year he was kind of he was kind of settling in nicely. And then you saw there when this is the first time this year he came in with runners on base and um, just missed the fastball and it got sent. And this game got way closer. So I think it speaks to the larger issue of, again, coming from the perspective of this is a playoff game. This is your division rival. Until the Braves start winning at a 102 win pace again, that right now it's the Mets and the it's a two-horse race in the NL East, and you got to win every single one of these games because as we saw last year, these tiebreakers matter. So for you to go in a 5-0 game, I understand. I would love Max Crank to get his first save. He's earned it. But after the first hit, you should have somebody warming up to start the ninth. You shouldn't have had to get somebody up after there's been three hits and a run's already crossed the plate. You really got to take it like there needs to be a better sense of urgency. And Mendy's managed the bullpen well. He's been a damn good manager for a lot of this season and a lot of last season. But I think going forward, and hopefully he takes this just as a reminder that just because the score is 5-0 and just because they haven't shown you anything yet doesn't mean that it can't all flip in the blink of an eye. So,
Yeah, I'll just agree with your tirade. I have no comment on the rest of the game.
yeah, but overall, at the end of the day, Mets win. Can't be too upset as I was saying to start the podcast. But they'll play two games. Game tomorrow: Christopher Sanchez versus Griffin Canning, Zach Wheeler versus David Peterson to end it on Wednesday. So we'll see how that series goes. Obviously, a good start for the Mets, but as the Phillies showed you, you can't ever count them out, even in games where they don't look like they have anything going for them. So,
I think you can.
all right, we'll pivot to some MLB roundup. So, just a couple of things happening today. Max Meyer, Miami Marlins pitcher, strikes out 14 batters over six scoreless innings. His ERA is now 2.10 on the season. So I think you're finally starting to see the fish kind of reap the benefits of their prolonged tank. I still think they're a whiles away, but as a Marlins fan, you got to be excited to see some of those arms coming back up and really showing you that there is some young talent in that system.
Yeah, I would agree. I forget who's in the rest of the rotation right now. I can speak more on the bats because I watched two of the three games over the weekend in Philadelphia. They're I was listening to a couple guys on the radio too. They phrased the Miami Marlins team interestingly, that the team is essentially just one big experiment for baseball. And I found that an interesting way to put it. This was this was a writer for The Athletic that was talking about this and saying that they're testing out a couple different things, pitching being one of them. I don't remember the specifics. But whatever weird nuanced things that they're doing um have been working in spurts. For not as much for pitching yet. I don't think it's been great with the exception of Max Meyer today. But the bats too, they're um they've swung at the first like they've swung at their top top five in the league, I think, and like first pitch swings. Like they swing at everything, they'll swing at anything. Um I don't know I don't know a ton about the profile on Max Meyer. But I've seen him around before. But I would agree with you that I think I don't know. I'm struggling to profile the Marlins as a team, I think.
Yeah, they are a weird team to profile, and I going back to what you're saying about the hitting approach, that's definitely a unique thing, right? It kind of goes against a lot of obviously you saw the whole with Moneyball ushering in the whole sabermetrics, and now everyone wants to get on base. So the whole pitch be selective with your pitching, especially guys like Kyle Schwarber. You saw that a lot tonight, where he really, really waits for his pitch. If he's not swinging for the fences on the first one, but yeah,
Mm.
and even a guy that I think speaks to that really well is Jacob Wilson from the A's. I was listening to another podcast about kind of his profile, and he's obviously a very high contact guy, but that's because he swings at everything. So he just has such coverage of the zone that even when it's outside, he manages to dump it into left field for a base hit. So I mean, obviously, if I was the Marlins, I'd probably be doing the same thing, right? Because for the last couple of years, like whatever they're doing has been working. So, I definitely am. I'm not opposed to the strategy of just throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks, and hopefully you get some pieces to really contend the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's they're obviously not a team that's going to spend any money. Um, so they're going to rely a ton on these whatever. whatever their strategy is going to be and executing it in double and triple A for these guys coming up. Because that's the option. If you're not going to spend money, then you need a sound strategy for the guys coming up. And I think you can see some of those pieces falling into place a little bit. The issue with that is that takes a lot more time than throwing some money at a team and getting some guys on the team. So that's why I would tend to agree with you. I think 2 years at a best case scenario that things start to work for them. I think it's probably longer, but I think if everything that they want to do with all their guys goes absolutely perfectly, you might see them make an above 500 push at the end of next season. I think. I don't know about this year.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that sounds right. In other news, the Braves beat the Cardinals today to reach a four-game winning streak. So obviously they had quite the losing streak to start the year. But wanted to get your thoughts on if you think that the slow start is over. And obviously, as I just said, as of right now, it's a two-horse race. But in 2022, I thought the Mets were going to win the NL East in July, and the Braves played the best stretch of baseball after the All-Star break I've ever seen. So you know how it goes. Anyone's capable of making a run. So, um, especially now
Um,
with Acuna coming back.
yeah, I don't think it's over. I don't know. I don't buy the the problem with the. I'm gonna sound like a homer here, so I'm gonna try not to. I think a ton of the guys on the Braves are really good. The problem is that for 2 years, all the guys on the Braves were having career years. And last year, they all kind of like a bunch of them got hurt, obviously, but a bunch of the other guys kind of came back to earth a little bit. And so I think they're settling down a little bit into what really good baseball players that they are. And so I don't think they're going to be a bad team by any stretch. Um, I I don't know. I don't see them competing for the division anymore though, only because now Strider's out again, right? I did I
Yeah,
did I
he
miss?
so he injured his hamstring playing catch. So
Yeah.
he's headed back to the
So
IL. Yeah, so
yeah, so there's a massive piece right there. This is Acuna's now second leg surgery he's coming back from, and he's you know that's big. That's big. Matt Olson is not having a Matt Olson typical year uh, at all. So uh, all things going right for them, I suppose. Yeah, they could make another ridiculous run, but that run required everybody having the best stretch of baseball they've ever played in their professional life, all at the same time, and I just don't see that happening again.
yeah, yeah. I vividly remember guys like Eddie Rosario and Travis d'Arnaud having OPSs of like 850 or something, and they're the ones batting in the 7 and 8 hole. And then I think that was the same year that Matt Olson hit 52 home runs, and he hasn't come close to that since. So
Yeah, and was hitting, and his on base percentage was like approaching 400 with all of his walks and everything
yeah,
too. Yeah, just no. Yeah, I don't see that. And Ozuna was a big bat for them, and I think he's still like, obviously he's still playing very very well this year. Um, he's 34. I don't know. Like obviously, he's these stats I'm looking at right now are somewhat proving me wrong. I have a hard time believing that he's going to keep an OPS over 1,000 for the entire year, and he's probably the best bat in their lineup right now, and they're still 4 games under 500. So
yeah,
I don't know. Like he would have to keep up the pace he's been at. Olsen would have to significantly increase how he's playing. Albies too. Acuna would have to come back and be Ronald Acuna, which odds are he probably will be, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Strider's going to have to come back and pitch well, and he's has not exactly been the healthiest of players over the last couple of years. I don't know. I think there's a little bit too much working against the Braves to be the powerhouse that they once were.
yeah, yeah. It does definitely seems like their best days may be behind them. Obviously, you can never count them out, but yeah. And then the last thing I want to touch on for MLB Roundup was Tigers winning today, improving to 14-9. So they're currently tied for first place in the AL Central with the Cleveland Guardians, and I think they're just kind of proving to the baseball world right now that last year really wasn't a fluke, and some of the guys they got are really starting to turn the corner.
Yeah, I would agree. Tigers are always kind of like I never had any personal hatred for the Tigers, and I enjoyed watching them, and they have a good system in place for bringing guys up. Um, and Torkelson's playing much better this year, which my my roommate has not let me forget because he's on his fantasy baseball team. Um, but that was supposed to be the guy for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
There was he came up as the best third base prospect I remember because he beat out Bohm in a bunch of rankings. They were coming up at the same time. Um, and he didn't get there for a while. But he's playing really well this year. Kerry Carpenter is off to a really good start too. Torkelson, for the most part, I'm looking at all the team leaders right now and their stats has kind of been the story for their offense.
Yeah, their
Um,
pitching's been really good as well. I think
that's true. Yeah.
their rotation. Obviously, you have Scooble. There's not much that needs to be said about him. He's perennial Cy Young candidate. I think for as long as he stays healthy. They re-signed Jack Flaherty. I think he's been pretty decent. I don't know his exact stats. I want to say he's around a 3.5. If at maximum he's around a 3.5. And the back of the rotation guys, which I've heavy stock in my fantasy team. Casey Mize is another former number one overall pick who's had a really nice strong start to the season. And Jackson Jobe, I believe last year's best pitching prospect in baseball, also kind of having a nice couple starts. And Reese Olson has not been my favorite guy as of late, but obviously everyone I just listed is young. They have shown flashes at some point or another. So I think they're going to be a really exciting team to come in the years to come. And the AL Central might actually make some noise this year between them, the Guardians, and the Royals. It's kind of for a division that has been really overlooked in the last couple of years as kind of it's kind of ridiculous that somebody from that division has to make the playoffs. I think now you're starting to see that the guys that are at the end of their rebuild phase are really starting to show out and have some real contributors.
Yeah, I agree. And it's about time because those three teams have annually had, you know, five or six guys each on top 100 lists. So it was bound to happen at some point. And I just sidetrack. I totally forgot that Javier Baez still plays on the
Yeah,
Detroit
he's been
Tigers.
good, I think,
Yeah, he's
right?
actually playing. He's hitting 271 this year. The uh the power's not there anymore. He's getting up there too. What is he? He's 32. He's getting hits. It's not really stealing base as much anymore. So, but he's getting on base for the most part.
Yeah, and I think as long as for someone who I think obviously he's not gonna live up to that contract, but I think all you're really asking for there is for him to play some good defense and just be serviceable with the bat. And I think you have enough guys there where you can kind of just let him take a back seat and just kind of play his role as the veteran leader for a bunch of those kids that are starting to come up.
I agree.
Yeah, so that will take up our MLB roundup. And before we end the episode today, we're gonna start our new segment, Studs and Scrubs. So did you want to go first or me?
Yeah, I want to go first
For
because I
sure.
have beef. I have beef with the people that I am picking.
You
Um,
can't have beef with both of them.
that's true. Well, um, so I'll go with my star first. I'll start on a higher note. My star for the week is Josh Naylor, who I who I recently put on my fantasy team too. But I'm pulling up his last week. I was looking at it before while I was watching the Phillies lose again. Yeah, these last 7 days, he's 9 for his last 25 with 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, 3 walks, which is good for just under 1,200 OPS, um, which is really good. And I'm gonna even go back a little bit further. His last 51 at bats, he's 20 for 51 with 11 RBIs, 4 home runs, and an 1,100 OPS. So I'll go a little bit further back than last week. Um, but uh, I think he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he's kind of the definition of a first baseman, I think.
Yeah. I think when you say first baseman, somebody of Josh Naylor's stature probably comes to mind, is how I'd put it.
Yep, yep. I would wholeheartedly agree with you. He's a RBI machine. Last year hitting 108. I don't think he's going to touch that again. I might be wrong. And 30 plus homers. He's projected to do a little bit less power, but still over 100 RBIs again this year. So hopefully he keeps up to that. Um, and I'm going with two scrubs this week because I'm gonna pick what I call a real one and a homer one. I'll go
Okay.
with my real one first. Um, my first one's gonna be Dansby Swanson. Um, actually, he's having a pretty bad year overall, but especially his last um, 7 days. I'm looking at his last weeks of games right now. Um, he's 0 for 4, 2 for 4, 1 for 5, 0 for 4, 0 for 5, 1 for 5, 0 for 4. Um, good for just over a 100 batting average for the last week. Uh, um, he uh, he has scored 3 runs since um, April the 12th. Um, and he struck out quite a bit. He's not having RBI since April 12th. He does not have any home runs since the beginning of April. I don't know. I think he's fallen off a ton uh since he came up with the Braves. And I think most people know that now. But it's pretty bad. That's a pretty bad stat line for a guy who was at even 2 years ago was a really good major league shortstop. And then my other scrub for the week is Jordan Romano. Um,
Let's hear
and
it.
uh, I've got obviously he let up a ton of runs. First of all, he threw. And I was at this game, so I have personal issues with this. His ERA last week um, was a. I'm doing the math in my head here, so I might be a little bit off. Just under 40. Um, that's because he threw a scoreless inning. He threw one scoreless inning, and then he had 6 earned runs and 2/3 of an inning against the Miami Marlins, in which he let up 2 home runs and a double and a single. My biggest problem with this is that he had the nerve to come out after and say he felt fine and he did everything that he wanted to, and he was
I
going to
saw that. Yeah.
quote, look at film. And he might have felt fine. And actually, and I found this out listening to the radio, um, and you're not going to believe me when I tell you this. During this outing, he threw the fastest pitch he has ever thrown as a major league pitcher.
Really?
He threw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and he has never thrown triple digits before. He threw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with his first pitch,
Holy
and
crap.
that first pitch was a double to the right center field gap. So if he's actually healthy and he's throwing triple digits, and the Miami Marlins are tagging him for 6 runs in 22 pitches, it signals a larger problem with Jordan Romano's pitching. I don't know what that is, but he has not nearly been worth the $8 million that he $8.5 million that he's been getting from the Philadelphia Phillies right now. While Jeff Hoffman sits with a cool 1.5 ERA, 8 saves pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays right now. Um, yeah, I could go on and on about him because he strikes me as somebody that midway through the year when he's getting booed vociferously for sucking in the fourth inning of a doubleheader in July when he lets up 14 runs after pitching 2 innings, he's going to have something to say about the crowd. So I'm foreshadowing a little bit here, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy. So that's why I don't want to count him as my real scrub. Because he did play terribly. He pitched terribly. But it might have been one of the worst relief outings I've ever seen in his entire life. Um, but
Yeah. No, for sure. Going back to what you were saying, I feel like knowing that you play in Philadelphia, like it's not a secret. like what the fit, and it's not a good or a bad thing because obviously I'm support the Sixers, and I understand from that perspective that like you play good, we're not going to boo you. And it's they just want to see accountability, right? Like if you suck, say I was terrible. It won't happen again. I'm going to work to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's it. And for
And
that,
nobody would have said a word about it. Not
right.
a word about it. That might be a bit of a stretch. It would have been a conversation the next morning on WIP, and it would have been done.
Right. You say, oh, Romano stinks. He almost blew the game. But, you take accountability. And if it's a one-time thing, then, in June, you're going to be saying, oh my God, Romano, I can't believe you remember in April, he gave up those 6 runs. Like he made it bigger than it had to be. And I think it really just like all you got to do is just, take accountability. And for you to say, you just got to read the room. And even if he truly believes that he's throwing his best stuff, which, if you're saying he touched the 100, that's the first thing he ever did that, then maybe he really does believe that. But the way in the context that he said it, just it's just not a good look. And I agree that I think it's going to snowball, or it's potential to snowball at least. And God forbid, like the scenario you said comes to fruition, and he has to start saying something about the fans. Like that's not what you want to do, especially not for a team that is trying to keep the clubhouse going, right? For a playoff push. Like it's a long season, obviously, and the last thing you want is outside distractions like that.
This totally has the makings of Jonathan Papelbon adjusting his cup to the fans in 2014. This is the exact same thing, and I can see it coming. But this has an effect on the rest of the team too, because
Yeah.
Alvarado had the pitch on Saturday for absolutely no reason, and not that I guess tonight was a particular situation where he would have been put into the game being down, but that made him not be available for tonight. And he had pitched on Friday and pitched on Sunday. I think he's gone 3 days in a row, so he's probably not available for tomorrow's game either. As a direct result of the fact of a lead not being safe for a Major League Baseball player who just even 2 years ago was arguably a top 5 to 7 relief pitcher in the sport. Um, and to come out and yeah, to come out and say that, you did everything you wanted to and had your best stuff when guys who were in, you know, the Frontier League last year are hitting 400-foot home runs off of you, um, is just absolutely ridiculous. Um, and I don't know. I've heard interviews. I think he's a smart baseball player. But I don't know. Yeah, he should come out and say, yeah, I sucked. And, he should have come out and done? He should have come out and done the Pete Fairbanks thing from last year when he came out and said, I sucked and I sucked some more and I just really sucked. Because you know what? Because you know what? People would have, that would have become a thing.
Yeah.
And people would have made signs and people would have supported him the same way people did when Alec Boehm said he
Yeah,
fucking hates
yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. No, I
So
I agree completely with that. But yeah. So I guess I'll go with my studs and
yeah, go ahead.
scrub for the
You can
week.
stop me with my rant about Jordan Romano. You can go ahead.
No, it's great stuff. So my star of the week, I've gone between a bunch of guys, but I'm decided to go with Dylan Moore, the utility man from the Seattle Mariners. So this past 7 days, he's gone 10 for 26 with 6 runs, 3 homers, 5 RBI, 3 stolen bases, and an OPS of about 1.18. So he's having a really nice year in general. I'd
Hmm.
say I drafted him and I dropped him once he got hurt, which I'm regretting obviously. But overall batting 316, 5 home runs and 57 at bats. He's getting steals. This is 5 steals over 57 at bats. Just having a really nice year for the Mariners. I think the Mariners need some offensive production. I think given that nobody's has anything bad to say about that rotation, or that bullpen. They're kind of you play in a park like I think it's still called T-Mobile, hopefully. And like it's a pitcher's park. That team's built for pitching, and I feel bad for the fan base because all they have to do is sign good players and good hitters, and they could really be a World Series contender with that staff. But
Hmm.
definitely Dylan Moore helping to fill in the gaps a little bit with a strong week. And then my scrub is another former fantasy player. And I hate to pile on a guy that is no longer in the majors. He got demoted yesterday. But my scrub of the week is going to be starter Easton Lucas. of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I was told that this guy was Cole Hamels after he had his second start, and I believe it was 10 innings to start his major league career of shutout ball. So I bought into the hype. I got him. And then he went against the Atlanta Braves, and he promptly gave up 8 earned runs in 5 innings, with 4 walks. And then I debated on whether I wanted to keep him or not, and I decided I'm going to cut bait. Good thing I did, because then he faced, guess what, the anemic Mariners offense, and promptly gave up 6 earned runs and 1 and 2/3. So for those of you counting at home, that is an 18.9 ERA with a WHIP of 2.85. So hopefully he fixes it in AAA. Obviously, don't want to beat a guy when he's down, but rough week for Mr. Lucas. The highest ERA that I saw from a starting pitcher over the past 7 days. But yeah, no, he basically tanked my week. I got destroyed last week. Unfortunately, we'll come back stronger against Brad hopefully this week. But he was doing me no favors in that department with that atrocious start, and he certainly followed it up with a worthy encore about 5 days later. So
My scrub's ERA is double yours.
your scrub pitched about a tenth of the innings that my scrub pitched. So
In principle, fair enough.
uh yeah, but I don't know. This fantasy week is it's shaping up to be a good season. I don't want to spend too much time on our fantasy episode, and we could do Fantasy Friday potentially, or talk about that on a later episode. But
Yeah,
um
that'd be good to get a couple of the guys on. That'd be fun.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that'll just about wrap us up for today's episode, the pilot episode of Chin Music, the baseball podcast. So once again, I'm Andrew Menson, alongside Andrew Lukoski, and thank you guys for listening.